Hi everyone, this is Heidi, and this week we are talking about the earth under our feet. Um, I think many of us just walk across the surface of the earth every day as we're walking down the street, on top of the concrete or maybe on the floors of our house, and we don't often think about what is actually underneath there. What is the earth made out of underneath us? And obviously we live on this beautiful planet that it's this giant ball of all different layers of crust and the inner core and that kind of thing. But this week we are just going to talk about what is right beneath our feet, the actual soil of the earth. And some people call it dirt, but soil is really referring to the living organism. People say that dirt is dead and soil is alive. So yeah, we're going to explore a little bit of what is in the soil in your own backyard. And I'm going to share a little story about what is in my backyard. I'm literally in my backyard. I'm right behind, this is the back of my house right here. And I'm sitting kind of in the excavated area. Our house isn't done yet, and we had a big backhoe come and pull the earth away so that we could build our house, because we live on a hill, so it had to be leveled. So I happen to live in an area of Wisconsin where many thousands of years ago the glaciers were here. They came down to just about here, about as far south as they came, and when they receded, they backed up to the north. And it receded is another word for melted. When they melted, basically, something really extraordinary happened with the landscape here. And you've all seen ice melting probably in the spring, or water washing away across the soil. And something happens, right? When the water is washing away, it's actually doing something probably to the soil. It's maybe eroding the soil. So there's all sorts of particles of different sand and soil and rocks probably that are being washed away, right? And so if you can imagine this giant wall of ice receding and melting, and all that water rushing down this way. And so this hill that I'm sitting on is, before the backhoe came, it was as the glacier dropped it off, essentially. Many thousands of years ago. And so when our backhoe unearthed this back here, it's these are stones that have been underground for thousands of years, and they haven't seen the sun until it was revealed when we were building our house. So when the water was washing all of that away, some different things happen. We're going to do a little experiment. So below the video, you can scroll down, there's a little soil test experiment that everybody can do with the soil in their own backyard. But what happens with the water is that there's different things in all this soil, right? There's sand, there's silt, there's clay. So that's mostly like what the components of soil are. And those particles are different sizes. So when you're at the beach and when you've seen sand and you've looked really closely at it, you can probably see the individual grains of sand, right? They almost look like if you were an ant or some sort of bug, they would look like a boulder to you. They would be that big. So those are the bigger grains of sand, right? And then silt is quite a bit smaller. Silty soil, yeah, it's quite a bit smaller. You can probably see the grains of it, but it's much smaller than sand. And then clay. If you've ever played with or touched some clay, you know that it's really smooth and almost slimy sometimes when it's wet, right? And you can't really see the individual particles of clay because they're so tiny and they're really smooth when they're pressed together. So if you imagine those different sizes and weights of those particles in a bunch of water, what do you think would settle to the bottom? Would it be the small, lighter weight particles, or would it be the heavier, larger particles of sand? So obviously I'm sitting on this big old pile here. This is all, you can maybe see here, this is all sand sand here that was dropped off by the glacier. So the sand and the rocks settled to the bottom, and then if you can see over my shoulder, there's this stripe right there. That is the clay that's settled on top. There's about 1 foot of clay that's settled on top of all this sand. And then on top of that, there's a little bit of topsoil that took many thousands of years to develop, the topsoil, so that this green, beautiful green lush could grow on top of it. So we're going to do a little experiment this week because I want to know what is the soil in your backyard. Or maybe you can go to a local beach or a park where you can explore and dig a little hole and do a little experiment. So I look forward to hearing about your adventure.